Hello and welcome to a sector-based approach to meeting worker transportation needs, a webinar by the National Network of Sector Partners, which is an initiative of the Insight Center for Community Economic Development, in partnership with the Joblinks Employment Transportation Center of the Community Transportation Association of America. We're so thrilled you could join us, and we have an exciting webinar planned. My name is Jim Torrens. I am your moderator, and I work with the Insight Center and the NNSP initiative. I'm joined here in our Oakland offices by my mostly silent partner, Laverne Gardner, who is going to provide technical support. You want to say hi?
Hi.
So I want to run through a few logistics just to make sure as people log in that you are able to navigate the webinar in case you haven't ever done so. At this point that may be moot, but I still like to begin this way. So there's this control panel which you can open and close by clicking on the arrow button at the upper left, and that will help get it out of the way of your screen so you can see the slides. But you can bring it back when you want to ask a question or need to use any of the controls. Open and close just like that. The audio for this session is by phone, and in order for us to have your participation, we'll need for you to enter your audio PIN if you haven't done that already. We really want your questions and comments, and we want to have a discussion, but in order to be able to unmute you when the time comes, you will need to enter that, and then when you get my attention, I can call on you and give you a chance to speak. To get my attention, you can type something into the questions pane. So, Laverne, would you go and show the questions pane? Yeah, thanks. So you can type a question to me. I will respond at the earliest break, and let you know when we might give you a chance to ask that question. Or if you like, you can click on the little hand and raise your hand, and I'll see that, and then we'll type you a chat message to say, how can I help? I want to mention that this session is being recorded, and that links to the slideshow, the recording, and to other relevant materials are going to be sent after the webinar. So everyone who registered will get those. If you're listening, you're in that group. So maybe you don't have to feverishly write down everything we say, but can participate fully. So as I mentioned, the title of this webinar is a sector-based approach to meeting worker transportation needs. And it could just as easily be titled a sector-based approach to meeting worker and employer transportation needs, because workers and employers are both affected by transportation barriers, and the whole sector approach, which I'll talk about in a minute, is founded on the idea of deeply understanding and developing solutions to address the needs of both workers and employers in a given industry sector. I'll give an example of the ways that this kind of need emerges, in case you're not already familiar with it. I was talking earlier this week with someone from The Source in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is a sector initiative that works with healthcare employers and manufacturing employers particularly. And the staff there said that they'd gotten a call the previous week from a job seeker who was very excited that she'd finally gotten a job and was going to start the next Monday. There's just one problem. She had no idea how she was going to get to the job. And through some scrambling and some connections with the employer, which they already had a relationship with, the Source was able to arrange for a carpool arrangement with existing workers at that employer to meet that worker's needs. But if they hadn't been, or if they didn't have that strong relationship already in place, it could have been a real problem for the job seeker and for the employer too. So solutions that are developed and implemented in partnership with employers are what we promote, and I think what you're going to hear about today. I will say that originally the subtitle of this webinar was a conversation at the intersection of transportation planning and workforce development. And I like that because, well, not just because it makes a play on the word intersection, but because it really is intended to bring together what I think of as two systems that are often largely invisible to one another, but that can really support each other. And that's part of why I've been very excited about the prospect of doing this ever since I met one of our panelists, Carolyn Jeske, I think 2 years ago at the National Association of Workforce Boards conference. I think I know that folks out there that you are span both of these systems and will bring both perspectives to our conversation. What we want is a conversation, a time where views can be exchanged and new ideas can be developed. And I think ultimately that's what we want to have happen in your area, wherever you are in the country, that your organization, whether it's a workforce development organization or a transportation focused organization, is having conversations with others about ways that you can each supplement each other's work. So if at the end of this call there's a call to action that I have for you, it is go forth and talk with each other. So the conversation that we're going to have today involves these fantastic panelists. I'm very, very excited to give them a chance to share the work that they've been doing, which brings together some of these industry-focused approaches and addressing the needs of transportation, the transportation needs of workers and employers. I mentioned Carolyn Jeske, who's the director of the Joblinks Employment Transportation Center at CTAA. Am I right, Carolyn? Did we meet at NOB? Is that the first time we were talking about this?
Yes, we did. I thought it was last year, but it might be 2 years ago. Seems like just yesterday, and we've done
time really flies. I might be overstating it, but I know that ever since I met you, I've had more awareness about this other system that often slips my radar, and I think that's hopefully what you're going to be able to bring to folks in our conversation today. I'll mention our next panelist will be Tim Harrison. He's a transportation outreach specialist at BWI Business Partnership, and I learned about his initiative just the other day. It's a very exciting way of meeting the needs of workers and really involves a lot of employer buy-in and a great deal of mapping of the needs of employees and employers. And so I'm excited that we'll have a chance to hear about that work. Tim, thank you for being on the webinar.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm going to enjoy this.
And last but certainly not least, I want to introduce Liz Montes de Oca, who is the rotating rideshare coordinator at the Dulles Area Transportation Association. And you know, I think the rotating rideshare program, in a way, is a system to do what the person that I mentioned from the source did ad hoc. And it's an innovative way to recruit people to participate in ride sharing and also to provide a mechanism to connect them. So very excited to have the chance to learn more about that and to share that with you. Liz, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Hi, glad to be here.
Great. Okay, so just as a part of the framing, and because NNSP is the National Network of Sector Partners, the national association for those who are interested in sector-focused approaches to workforce development or sector initiatives, I'd want to make sure we're on the same page about what I mean by sector initiative when I say that, and some of the foundation of that side of the equation here. I had a survey in the registration where I asked folks, are you a sector initiative? And I provided 4 responses: yes, no, yes and no, and I don't know. And yeah, I got quite a few I don't know and yes and no responses. So just to be clear, when we talk about sector initiatives here, at the Insight Center and the National Network of Sector Partners, we're talking about initiatives that focus intensively on an industry within a regional labor market. There's a sector focus, and it involves partnerships with multiple employers over a sustained period of time. It's often led by an intermediary that has either brought or developed credibility within the industry, often by demonstrated results over time. It has the goals of creating pathways for low-wage workers to either advance in their careers or to get access to good jobs. And I want to really flag this last one, it works towards systemic changes that provide benefits for both employers and workers, and of course the broader community as well. And I think that addressing transportation barriers that affect both employers and workers is one area where systemic changes can really have a major impact. So this is a bit of a graphic about the place that the sector initiative or the workforce intermediary occupies, and just really the main thing is that it's at that intersection, again, between what job seekers need and what employers need, and really is responsible for bringing together partners to provide all the array of services that are required to do that. So another aspect of the sector approach that I really want to flag is the partnership model and the idea that no one organization typically is able to meet all needs, but by bringing together partners with complementary areas of expertise, we can those needs can be met, and the situation for workers and employers can be improved. So that's the end of my introduction. I'll leave it there. I'd like to hand things over now to Carolyn to talk a little bit about the Joblinks Employment Transportation Center, the recent work that they've been doing, particularly on developing some sector-focused briefs on transportation strategies. Why don't I leave it at that, Carolyn, and you can take it away.
Thank you very much, Jim. When Jim and I met somewhere between a year ago's NOB conference and 2 years ago's NOB conference, that's the National Association of Workforce Boards annual conference, Jim and I instantly connected. We were just so curious about each other's role that we kept peppering each other with questions like, what do you mean? What do you mean? You know, how can we? How can we? And we finally ended our conversation with exchanging our cards and getting in touch with each other right away and saying, yes, we need to do something one day. And as we started our sector-based investigations, Jim was so helpful, and Jim put us in touch with local providers doing sector-based work, and we were just so delighted to have that relationship, and also super happy to be able to do this webinar together. So with that, let's go to the next slide briefly. I want to mention to folks on the call, and thank you all for joining, that Joblinks is a part of the Community Transportation Association of America. If you haven't heard of us, we're a national association based in D.C., and we do advocacy work. We are a membership association of transit providers, senior centers providing transportation, mobility managers, transportation management associations, and we also have some technical assistance programs, and that's where Joblinks fits in. CTAA is committed, as it says on the screen, to making sure that communities have reliable, accessible, affordable, convenient, and safe transportation. And one of the ways that we do advocate for it is by making sure that communities have enough resources to deliver connectivity in their communities. And so if you go to the next slide, I'll share a little bit about Joblinks. Joblinks has been around since the early 90s. We've been fortunate to be supported with Federal Transit Administration dollars for all of those times, and since the late 1990s with some grant funding from the Employment and Training Administration at the Department of Labor, and also the Office of Disability Employment Policy, also at the Department of Labor. We provide national technical assistance, and we focus mainly on the mobility needs of low-wage job seekers and earners, as well as people with disabilities, youth, veterans, and older workers. And our biggest way to do our work is to highlight interagency and broad-based community partnerships and to encourage and incentivize those partnerships. And I hope by showing these sector briefs and other resources today, you'll see how we do that. So as we at Joblinks, we all know that it's just such a tough time for our country, and we know that getting people back to work is so important, and job creation comes first, and great skills training and preparing people for the workforce is just so important. And it really takes all of us to make sure that we rise in an economic recovery period. And so Joblinks is committed to make sure that transportation is not going to be a place where there's a breakdown. We want to make sure that we're a piece of the puzzle right up front. We all can, as Jim said, communicate now, even if we don't know what job openings are going to happen, even if we don't know if the mayor has gotten that new industry to come back to the city. It doesn't matter. If we start talking now, we're ready, and it doesn't have to be after someone learned they got a job. It's all got to be done before that. So we are here committed to helping these partnerships form now, and we know there's so many great partnerships out in the country already, and so that's why we love highlighting it, and we're so happy to have Liz and Tim on the call with us today. Next slide, please. So what we did was, with the Employment and Training Administration grant that we have now, we said, how can we best help make the transportation connection? And we said the best way to do it is to learn what you all as workforce professionals are doing. So we went out, we talked to people, we were so fortunate to be in DC because there's always a sort of a session to go and think about. We've gone to child care related sessions, regional cluster sessions, home health care sessions. We're always going out and learning and talking in the field, and that's what led us to say we have to meet workforce people where they are, how they're thinking about things, how they're largely doing their work, and it was around sectors. And so what I'd like to say is that today we have 3 of our 6 regional sector briefs up on our website, and I'll show you how to get there in just a minute. And what we did was we know that there's not one size fits all for transportation. You can't just put a bus on the street and take care of it. You can't just put a van on the street and take care of it, because as we delve deeper and deeper, we see that there are customers in different sectors who have specific, unique, and customizable needs. And just to highlight that fact is we started out doing one healthcare worker brief, and we're like, wait a minute, home healthcare workers have very unique transportation barriers, and they're not the same as the healthcare transportation barriers that you see going to larger campuses or community health centers. So as we delved in, we sort of disaggregated the market, and then we built up with transportation solutions for those. So we'll share those with you later. If you go to the next slide, I'd like to keep moving so we can get to our next speakers. But we do have a website. You can get there by going to www.solutionstogetthere.org, or you can go to our cta.org site and get there as well. But where the sector briefs are under our innovations navigation bar. But as you can also see, we have a whole section dedicated to workforce professionals. So take a look at the website, visit it, and let us know if we can do anything more for you there. Can you go to the next slide? And it's interesting because, a lot of times human services agencies and workforce boards, they definitely have support services, and that often means transportation. But transportation can mean so much more than just support services. When a community has solid infrastructure and the communities come together to support and expand that infrastructure, it's different than support services. So here we're talking about infrastructure. We're talking about economic development lifelines. We're talking about lines, just economic, we're part of the economic infrastructure of our community. And I think taking a broad view in addition to the support services view helps bring, I think, some more greater and sustainable changes that benefit more than smaller groups of people. So what we do is we have on our website, we have a strategies page. And so today you'll hear some different strategies. We have a section on late night services, van pools, how you can use dial-a-ride transportation to make the trip to work, how you can use and expand upon the bus that regularly runs to help you with the trip to work. And we have a fifth bullet that we've added since I did this slide capture, and it's based on Jim's suggestion, we did a directory of known car ownership and car loan programs in our country, because we know that that is often a very key strategy. Next slide, please. We also have another way to handle transportation solution is through the affordability piece. What comes out a lot in the sector briefs we've done is low wages, and already transportation makes up about 27% of people's expenditures. So you combine it with transportation and housing, and you're really putting quite a burden on people who make low wages. So what we'll factor into these briefs as you read them will be the need for reduced and free fare programs and ways to use tax incentives with the qualified transportation fringe benefit, and we talk about that a lot. And you'll see a lot of employers who take advantage of this commuter choice benefit. Next slide. A number of you had mentioned how to get in touch with employers, and I know our two speakers will talk about that today because they are from employer partnerships. But we do have a toolkit. It was written for people like you, people in the transit field, the workforce field, to give these two-page briefs to your chambers of commerce and your employer partners. And we have two-page briefs on what is a van pool, how can employers get involved, and why. And so this is a toolkit that you can get off of our main website. Next slide, please. So the what is what can you do is van pools and reduced fare programs, but the most important thing is who in your community you can partner with. And I think one of the great messages we have, and Jim mentioned it, is let's get out there and let's talk and let's meet. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about a few of the transportation partners that may be in your community, and I hope you have one of each of them in your community, because then you've got a pretty great expertise for us to tap into. In your region, especially I think we're thinking more regionally now, there are public and community transportation providers, in many communities who are working together to better coordinate transportation. There are also transportation management associations. There are just over 100 of them. Transportation management associations are also known as transportation management organizations. And as Liz and Jim will maybe correct me in a little bit, they're public-private partnerships that draw their membership from local employers, transportation providers, and it's really to come up with public and private sector joint solutions to address transportation issues and encourage use of transit modes such as shuttles and van pools and public transit. And you also, they're mostly found in larger communities, although we know one rural, TMA, and they focus their efforts particularly in like commercial districts, shopping centers, and industrial parks, and we'll hear more about that as well. Also, I like to say that transit providers and TMAs, they take a real customer-focused approach. And there are also positions springing up called mobility managers or transportation navigators. So in addition to TMAs and transit providers, you have mobility managers who are delving into customer needs and making sure that there's no one solution. And so I'd like you to just, if maybe you have one in your community, that would be good to look out for. And lastly, while public transit providers have their own planning arm, there are other planning entities in the community, and there are rural planning organizations for communities under 50,000, and then metropolitan planning organizations. And we have links to how to get in touch with those, and they're in our brief. Next slide, please. Before I close, I wanted to say that it's all well and good to know your transportation partners, but it's what you do with them that is really just where your communities can shine. And we just know so many terrific folks out there, and I'm sure, we'd love to hear you on the call and listening to the call right now have things to add. But I did want to just highlight a few. There's a medical center in Hawaii that provides incentives, including gas vouchers, to encourage employees to fill open shifts. REI, I think you know the sporting goods store, it's a large cooperative. They offer all their employees, including part-time staff, a 50% subsidy if they commute via public transit. And one of our favorites is the Charlotte Area Hotel Association, who works with the area transit system. They buy bulk passes on behalf of hotel workers and their families, and they sell them to them at a discount. So there are going to be a number of those that you'll see in the brief. And if you go to the next slide, I'd like to say these examples are not all just employer and transit-based. Workforce development centers are playing a huge leadership role. And one of our favorite is the Heart of Texas Workforce Board, who partnered with Waco Transit to establish what they call the 6 to Success transit route. And what's great about that, and it hits on different sectors, is this one loop hits 2 hospitals, a shopping mall, several retail establishments, and banks, community college, technical college. I mean, one route is really serving the multiple trip needs that communities have in one day. The Ozark Regional Transit and the Northwest Arkansas Community College, they co-fund 3 routes together. So it's not just just put something to our college and back. It's a community route, and it can take people to jobs and to, hospitals and all that. So we have briefs on our website about those. And the last one is, there's a really, really, really rural friend of ours. She's from Minnesota Workforce Center, and she has a rural rise. And she says the people per square mile is so little that they can't use even van pools. So she has come up with individualized trip planning and rideshare matching examples, and I encourage you to take a look at those. Next slide, please. And the next slide might not actually be there because I think now I'm handing it over. Okay. Well, I'm Carolyn, and my coworker Pamela Friedman did just outstanding research for each of these sector briefs, and she's available as well. And if we can answer your questions after this session, please let us know. Thank you very much.
Carolyn, thank you. That was ultra rich with information. I have already a question or two, but I want to encourage folks now to send your questions or raise your hand if you have a question so that we can engage with Carolyn for a few questions about Joblinks work before we go to hear about one of the initiatives that is presenting today. So please let me know. I just wanted to say that one of the things that came through, Carolyn, for me in what you just shared was the incredible array of resources that you have compiled and that are available through Joblinks and the website that I think I and many others might not really be aware of existing prior to now. And I just just to say that it's a different set of systems perhaps than we're accustomed in the workforce world to dealing with. Or that we're just not as deep on, and that I'm really struck by the array of resources. So I do encourage people to check that out. I have a question here from Janet Van Leer. Let me see if I can unmute Janet and give her a chance to ask the question. So Janet, are you there?
I believe I am.
and we can hear you.
Good.
So thanks for your question. You want to go ahead and ask?
Sure, Carolyn. I was wondering, and you kind of mentioned a couple ideas, but what are some examples of successful ways to approach multiple employers in a sector or coordinate an initiative with them? You mentioned the chamber and I think a hotel association. I'm wondering if you could give us more insights about that.
And Janet, it'd be helpful too if you could say what organization or type of organization you're coming from too.
Oh, sure. I am with the Alternative Staffing Alliance. We're a nonprofit association of workforce developers who use a temp and temp-to-hire staffing strategy to help connect low-wage and other job seekers with barriers to employment.
Right. Thanks for joining the call. This is great. And where are you from?
I'm in Boston, but our members are throughout the country.
Okay. Well, now one thing to do is if you aren't already in touch with your Workforce Investment Board, that is a great place to start, since I think workforce boards are great intermediaries between two businesses, and one-stop centers have business service representatives too. So they might be places to partner to sort of get to the chambers and things like that. But also, I would say, attending some chamber meetings. On our website, we have a really great podcast and article from a chamber executive director outside of Indianapolis, and you can really hear from the podcast what is making her interested in transportation. Quality of life for workers, and and knowing that how late people are to their jobs because of sitting in traffic, and it's sort of, if you can go through the workforce board and the one-stop center, they might already know who to get in touch with in that way. But I would probably listen to our podcast, and also at our business toolkit, we have a number of sort of introductory flyers that speak to what we think, what we've heard employers care about. And it might be, I don't know if that helps. And on our, maybe I'll have Jim also send out to everybody, we have a business strategies page in addition to our toolkit. And one of the things we have is a write-up of 3 different chambers and how they are participating in very different ways in solving transportation issues.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely check out the website.
Okay.
I'll add, Carolyn, to your response, because one of the things that I find exciting about the intersection between sector initiatives and transportation focused organizations is the fact that it's part of the responsibility of sector initiatives to develop these kinds of deep employer relationships and to understand their needs. And so, to the extent that there are sector-focused initiatives already in place in a region, they are a great partner for transportation organizations to invite into planning, because they already have a lot of those relationships and already have a finger on the pulse of the needs of both the workers and employers. NNSP certainly knows of hundreds of sector-focused initiatives around the country who are members of our network, and we're always glad to share information about initiatives in particular regions that we know of. Just connecting with sector-focused initiatives is another great way for folks on the transportation side of things to get input about workforce-related needs. And Janet, I want to say it's a great coincidence that you're from the Alternative Staffing Alliance, because we are planning a webinar for 2 weeks from today with...
oh, I saw that, yes.
So, yeah, with Francoise Carré and Brandon Holgate of the UMass Boston Social Policy Center about alternative staffing organizations and their intersection with a sector approach. So there may be a way for us to further the conversation in that session.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks.
Okay, let's move on. I know there will be more questions out there, but I want to give Tim Harrison a chance to talk. We are going to hear about specifically, what's happened in one region with one set of employers And I think this also will help to illustrate some of the practical questions about how you make something like this happen. So, Tim, would you like to take it away?
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody can hear me well.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you again, Jim, for inviting me. I'm Tim Harrison. I'm the Transportation and Mobility Manager for the BWI Business Partnership. Can we go to the next slide, please? The BWI Partnership is a nonprofit organization. We are actually the Transportation Management Association for the BW airport area. We were founded by NSA, Fort Meade, and a couple of the businesses in the Anne Arundel County area back in 1985. Can you pass to the next slide, please? We actually, BWI has a problem. We're actually 7 miles outside of the Baltimore City area. The problem basically arose probably about 8 years ago. They started talking about, the employers in the airport started talking about people coming to work first thing in the morning. The airport opens up and actually the airport does not close. But the first employees need to be there no later than 3:30 in the morning. Baltimore City does have public transportation. Public transportation actually stops running at 4 o'clock. Once the public transportation stops running, then the employees have no option to get to work. The average income at BWI is $8 per hour. Yes, we do have TSA out there, Transportation Security Administration out there, and they make about $10 to $12 an hour starting out, and then of course they go higher. And we do have, a couple other government agencies, but the average employee makes about $8 to $10 an hour, depending upon what level they are. Most of the employees are considered low-income employees, and of course, as you already know, most of you already know, low-income employees, they really don't have either the credit or the cash to buy a car. And once they do buy a car, it's, they have to pay insurance as well as keeping it up. In most of our areas around the airport, and that airport is unique because we're surrounded by Howard County, Anne Arundel County, Baltimore City, and Baltimore County. To the next slide, please. So getting into the airport from one of those counties can take up to, and I've tried it before, it can take up to an hour and a half to 2 hours to actually get to work. The BWI Partnership, being the Transportation Management Association, we work with many employers. So we have several type of employer-based transportation programs going on, from Baltimore City to Howard County. And that is called the WILD, the Work on Wheels program. That program actually is one of our flagship programs that actually transport employees from Baltimore City outside businesses in Howard County, which Howard County is not too far, but it is just probably about an hour outside of Baltimore City if you caught the bus. The partnership also provides, the airport program that I'm speaking about, and you'll hear a lot more about that today. And then we do some human services transportation. And one of the young ladies asked a question about how we gather people, and we're going to talk about the partnerships that we've created over the years that helps us support our programs. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, this is me. I am responsible for the BWI Partnership's Sunrise Shuttle. The Sunrise Shuttle was created for the BWI airport employers. The employers came to the partnership and sat them down and told them about the problem. The problem was basically there was no public transportation to the airport during the hours when transportation shuts down. We have a light rail that comes out to the airport that does on a Sunday morning. That doesn't start until 11 o'clock. We have what they call the number 17 bus that comes to the airport, and that doesn't start. That ends at 3:30 in the morning. So employees were fighting their way to work. We have, in Baltimore City, they have a unique cab system that is illegal called a hack. A lot of employees, we're talking about $8 to $10 an hour employees, were paying what they call a hack to get to work. Some of them were paying up to $40 to get from Baltimore City into the airport to get to work. Next slide, please. So once we sat down with the employers, we started addressing what the problem was. And basically, they needed services to help their low-income employees get back and forth to work. These employees could not afford a car. These employees most of them were coming off of welfare and finally got a job, and so this was their only job. A lot of the employees, and then I can honestly tell you, a lot of employees didn't even have a driver's license. And if you catch a bus from Baltimore City to the airport on a monthly basis, you'll spend $65 for a monthly bus pass. If you miss your bus, the last bus coming out to the airport, and then you add let's say a hack or a taxi to that, you're spending an additional $60. If you miss that at least 3 times a month, you've already spent over $100 to get back and forth to work. Go to the next slide, please. So basically what we did was we sat down with all the employers. We had a very deep and intimate conversation with them. We went to the Maryland Transit Administration and talked to them about the situation. They explained to the BWI partnership there was a grant out here called the JARC. JARC stands for Job Access Reverse Commute. Most nonprofits can apply for this through their state or local transit agency. It comes from the Federal Transit Administration, and it specifically points to low-income workers. Basically what happens is once you apply for, and if you go to the Federal Transit Administration's website, you'll see the information up there for the Job Access Reverse Commute. It tells you all the qualifications. It also tells you which programs are eligible. The programs we're talking about today, most of them are looking for, the JARC program is looking for people to apply. Well, the JARC program, what it basically does is it requires that you have a local match. Well, the partnership, by it being a public-private partnership, basically what the partnership did was we used our services that are our TMA services, let me put it like that. We took our TMA services and we asked our private partners if they would support this program. They said yes. So what ended up happening is we took their funding and we put the match to the JARC funding to help us start the program. Now, the fun part of it was that once we got the 50% match the first time, because the JARC usually lasts 2 years, we had to come back up with it for the second time. Well, we're going to talk about the benefits of the JARC program to the employers, and once they saw the benefit, they jumped right on it. So we had the public-private partnership working well. Because we're a transportation management association, we were able to actually work with the economic development corporations in the area to also help us support our program. One of them is called the Anne Arundel County Workforce Development Corporation. They're a partner. Howard County Development Corporation, they're a partner. All the economic development corporations jumped on it because it was helping people get to work, and it was supplying employers with the services that they need to get the people to the jobs and keep their businesses flowing. Next one slide, please. Okay, so my job is always to sit down and talk to the employers. One of the things I'm always pointing out to the employers, and I really highly recommend that you go to the Joblinks website, because a lot of the information that I use to approach the employers, a lot of the information that I use to get the employers to buy in, I took from their website and took the information with me to the employers and started talking to them about the different benefits of starting a service or helping to support a service for the employees. One of the things is the federal and local taxes are paid by the employees who are now working. Do you know that the Sunrise Shuttle's been running for 1 year? In that 1 year's time, we've already put back into Baltimore City's economy $1 million. And we've done that by making sure that these employees get back and forth to work. These employees are now federal and local taxes, and now those taxes are helping support the city as well as their federal income taxes. Most of these employees were unemployed. So at one time when they were unemployed, now they're employed and they're staying employed. And this cuts down on the unemployment. This reduces the unemployment rate as well as the money that you spend on unemployment. TANF and food stamp benefits are reduced because of the fact that this is the JARC program, or the Job Access Reverse Commute program, is for low-income workers. Most of our riders, and I can tell you that 75% of our riders, whether it's on the Sunrise Shuttle or the Workforce on Wheels program, are former TANF benefits recipients. That money flows right back into the TANF, TANF system, and that's money saved. Because of the fact that we have been able, the program has been so successful, we've been able to help employers retain employees by using this program. So our retention ratio when we started the program was about at 36% out of the BWI airport. We have raised it well over 85%. I spend monthly talking to the employers about their employees. In fact, one employee started last year when the shuttle started. She is still now employed this year. It'll be 1 year next month that the shuttle's been going. This employee has ridden the shuttle every day since. Next slide. Okay, so I will end it by saying this. There is really no quick solution to getting a shuttle or a van service started. It starts with conversation. It starts with ideas, bringing people to the table and sitting down and talking to the people, talking to the employers, talking to the employees, and coming up with a system. Partnership does count. We have spent I spend most of my time talking to the partners, the business partners. I'll also spend my time talking to the riders, the people who need it, to give me a case to continue to utilize the service. The service does not pay for itself. We do collect the fare. The fare is $3. But since we've been collecting the $3, we haven't lost ridership. But the employers find the benefit. The employers pay on the on an annual basis because we're TMA. We just ask the employers to pay no more than, I think from the average employer pays $1,500 a year. Right now, the TMA is hosting at least 15 employees per year, and we continue to grow. So it does take some work. But one of the benefits of it is like I said, the retention ratio raises. Not only does the retention ratio raise, the employees are more enthusiastic about coming to work. We recently started here in the state of Maryland the Guaranteed Ride Home. We partnered that with our shuttle service, so the employees aren't afraid of taking those shifts that are on Sunday mornings at 4 o'clock in the morning because they know they can get there, and if there's an emergency, they can get home. So we're constantly looking at employers. We're constantly trying to find ways to help the employer better themselves. And Jim actually showed a slide earlier that talked about a workforce intermediary, which I was in contact with one recently who contacted me, a new one in the area. And the first question that came out of their mouth was, how can we partner with you to partner with our employers, to partner to make sure people get to work? And we sat down, we talked, and started developing the strategy. Those are the people you contact: economic development, workforce development, and if as Carolyn said, the workforce investment boards, contacting them, getting them to buy in, and then going to the employers where the jobs are and sitting down and getting them to buy in. And then you actually have the basis of starting a good shuttle program. And I'll take any questions.
Great, Tim. Thanks. That was great. I do have a question from the audience, but first I wanted just to ask you a little bit more about that impact on employers, both the impact that they were feeling from those transportation barriers that you really described so vividly that the workers face, and that we know affect affect the businesses that employ them. Can you talk a little bit more about sort of what the impact of the the poor transportation options before was, and then what you found about the impact of the shuttle service?
Right, you're right, and I'm sorry I missed that, adding that opportunity. The impact, basically, what happened was when we sat down to talk with the employers, the turnover ratio was humongous. I mean, when we were talking about the average employee, our employer was retaining an employee maybe a month, sometimes 2 months, because it was just hard to get to work. And anybody in the human resources arena would actually say that every time you let somebody go or you have to rehire somebody, you spend almost anywhere between $2,500 to $5,000 to find somebody to replace somebody. And this is no different in a field to a food service, janitorial. It's a constant hiring. Well, since the Sunrise Shuttle has been working out at the airport, or even our Work on Wheels program in Howard County, the employers, they may have to hire somebody a month from now because somebody has decided to get a better job, or maybe when people do get terminated for crazy stuff, but their hiring process is not as much. And the employer out at the airport, as I said, we're open 24-hour days a day, 7 days a week. The employers are so happy with it that now, and it's funny, now when they hire somebody, they immediately send them to my office to get the Sunrise Shuttle information, and on top of the Sunrise Shuttle information, get any other transit information to make sure they're getting to work.
That's a testament, and I think the fact that the employers are paying into the system is also a testament to the value that they see in it. So that's really great. I wanted to ask you one other thing, which was about the process of surfacing this stuff. You've mentioned sitting down and talking with employers. Did you do a survey? Did you was there a way that you basically got enough information together to say, yes, this is going to be worthwhile?
Yes, we did a first survey. Actually went out to employees, and that was just a basic question of how do you normally get to work? If you miss your normal mode of transportation, what is the other way you get to work? And also collecting zip codes to see where they're coming from. Then taking and surveying the employers and talking to the employers and finding out what are some of the barriers to them, get them hiring more employees from Baltimore City or Anne Arundel County, and what were some of the barriers that had them what is the highest reason for them terminating? Which termination was not showing up for work or tardiness. And then the biggest barrier for them coming to work was basically the fact of the matter is most people said that they could not get there. And so when people were being interviewed from Baltimore City, the question always aroused, how are you going to get to work at 4 o'clock in the morning?
Right. Okay. Well, I have one question from a participant, and then a question that I'm going to save until our wrap-up when we all have a chance to have a conversation across the different presentations. But Darren Bates has a question about accessibility for people with disabilities. Let's see. I wonder, Darren, are you there? Can you hear us, or can you ask your question?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Darren Bates. I'm with Workforce Solutions of the Coastal Bend. We are the Workforce Development Board in this area. And I was just curious if your shuttle program is fully accessible for people with disabilities, particularly those with mobility impairments and wheelchairs or use of mobility devices.
Yes, it is. Basically, because you're following the Federal Transit Administration, the grant comes from the Federal Transit Administration down to one of your state agencies. So you have to go and you have to make sure that you follow all compliances of the Federal Transit Administration, which is one of them is, of course, access to accessible for people with disabilities. So we hired a vendor in order to handle our transit program. That vendor, what we made sure was that he followed all compliances. We wanted to make sure that he had wheelchair accessible vehicles. We wanted to make sure even if it was a van, that the van was meeting the ADA regulations. One of the things about being a transit mobility manager is you have to understand all the rules and processes of ADA as well as all the state and federal regulations. And so before you put a vehicle on the road, the one thing that we understood was that it had to be ADA compliant, and the vendor needed to be ADA compliant. If we needed a van for somebody with a wheelchair and we didn't have 2 or 3 hours to wait, we had to have that van there within like a half an hour. Well, I was lucky enough that the vendor that we used actually has nothing but wheelchair available, which they are minibuses. They 15-passenger minibuses, and they're ADA compliant as well as with a wheelchair lift.
Well, that's excellent news, and I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you for that question. Okay, I'd like to, oh, go ahead.
And this is Carolyn. You know, one of the big pushes that we've been making is also to van pooling, and some questions came up about accessibility of van pools, which tend to use smaller vehicles. And as you explore our business toolkit site under accessibility, you'll see an article about a transit agency that has accessible van pools and how they make that work. And I think that might be a good way for you so you can know that you can expand your options to more than like the bigger buses, just in case you need smaller buses. That's it.
Great. Well, thank you, Tim. We'll hopefully have a chance for you to chime in more when we have questions at the end. But I'd like to turn now to Liz Montes de Oca to talk a little bit about the rotating rideshare program from the Dulles Area Transportation Association. So, Liz, would you take it away?
Sure. Thank you very much, Jim. Yes, I'm Elizabeth Montes de Oca, and I work for Dulles Area Transportation Association. First of all, next slide, please. First of all, I would like to tell you who we are and what we do, and then I will tell you more about the rotating rideshare program. Next slide. Okay, so Dulles Area Transportation Association is a transportation management association. As we heard Caroline explain very well, we identify transportation needs. We advocate steps to meet those needs and provide a forum for members and other parties to be informed of opportunities in the Dallas area. The Dallas area is a 160 square mile area in this region, and we are always seeking for solutions to reduce traffic. That's our main goal. Next slide, please. Okay, so in 2011, Data was awarded a grant from the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation to implement this program, the rotating rideshare program. This program consists in providing on-site ride matching services to hotel employees, mainly the low-income workers, like the housekeeping staff. The assistance is face-to-face, mainly, during the lunch hours. So I talk to them one in the lunch hour, and every person is like unique. So I listen to them like their transportation needs, and if they need a ride, I offer the ride sharing option. If they need like courier transportation, I offer them schedules from Loudoun County or Fairfax County. If they back to work, I offer them brochures about safety or give them some red lights that they need to put on the bike. But also I explain them the advantages and importance of ride sharing, like save gas if they have a car, like reduce pollution, reduce traffic, and reduce stress while driving. Next slide, please. So the idea to launch a program like this was because Data was approached by the general manager of human resources of one of our members, that is the Hotel Hyatt, and she told us about the challenges that the workers faces with the transportation. So Data found some issues like carpooling and ride sharing are the preferred transportation options, and it occurs in informal basis. One thing that this manager told us was that if a driver quits or finds another job, his or her ride-sharing partners may quit too and follow him because of the ride. And another thing is like people that are biking to work, maybe they are using unsafe roads or using the hotel shuttle that some are not good to do this. Another slide, please. Yeah. So the idea, as we know, well, in this area is organization, the Community Connections website. They have this service, the right matching, and it's very easy, it's free, and it's very friendly to use. So, but this population, that low-income workers, maybe they are not aware, or maybe they don't know how to log in. So that's where my job is to help them how to create an account, or I create them the account for them, and then find the right matching person. Okay, so another thing was that maybe these people doesn't have a computer. So I always go with my laptop, and I help them to find a better option for them. The other slide, please. So as I told you, the conversation with the Human Resources Director from the Hyatt Dallas was the first thing that motivated Data to apply for a grant and start the returning lecture program. As I told you, we also were told that some employees start to work, and it could be a little bit dangerous for people that they don't know maybe the basic rules. So we always encourage them to use the safety brochures. Next slide, please. So after the conversation, we knew that a lot of the 99% of the housekeeping staff are Finnish speakers. So that's why the assistants is in Spanish or in English, and most of the time are Spanish speakers. So yeah, I help them. I talk to them in Spanish about the transportation needs, and we are always looking for find different options to commute to work. Okay, the other slide, please. Bueno, how does the routine lecture program work? It's very easy. I'll just simplify with these 6 steps. The first one, the person has to fill out an application sheet where he tells me all the general information like their name, last name, work schedule, their address, if they are willing to, what are they looking for, if they need a ride, or if they are interested in carpool with somebody else. Then, with that information, I create an account through the website, the Community Connection, and then I look for the right match. If I find a right match, I give to them the information, and this person is responsible to contact the right match and make the arrangement and then commit together. Next slide, please. So there are some benefits for the rotating ride share program. If we see from that hotel's point of view, the hotel is able to offer an additional service at no cost. They can improve employees' access to the work site while lowering absenteeism in worker turnover. And the benefits for the hotel's employees, well, they have the on-site access to the service. I'm always at the same hour in the lunch break. And after a while, the people they trust you. So maybe like in the first week or first 2 weeks, they don't like to, give you the information. But after a while, and you at the time that you talk with them and explain to them like what's your job there, they start to giving you information. So another benefit, they are able to find another alternative methods of their traveling work. It's important to say that in every hotel is unique because some of them they have public transportation near, others don't. So yeah, it's kind of difficult to say that, like everything is specific for each hotel. And well, the other thing is that they can speak in Spanish about the transportation issues. The other one, slide please. Right now, well, the responsibilities are very simple. First of all, we need to have a contact to work with data. Most of the time are the human resources manager. Then the hotel has to provide a space and internet access while the rotating lecture coordinator is on site. We have to set up a schedule that works for both parties, data in the hotel. Distribute or display any necessary ride share material, mainly in the break room. And of course, encourage staff to participate and about the program. So next slide, please. So far, we start with one hotel with the highest Dallas corner, but then we are right now in 7 properties. In the Best Western, in the Embassy Suites, the Home Suites, the Hilton Garden Inn, A-Love, and Holiday Inn. And we are looking for expand our programs in the next month. And that's all that I got. Oh, okay, sorry. Our future plans for data is pursuing additional opportunities to provide transportation alternatives for these populations that are like low income mainly, expanding the rotating ride share, as I told you before, to businesses with an emphasis on employers at Dallas Airport too, and exploring how Fairfax County's biking master plan might provide safe commuting alternatives for employees to be closer to the workers. That's going to be like for 2012. I think that's all.
Thank you so much, Liz, for describing that. I have a follow-up question for you that has to do with what you know about the impact of the program for workers and for employers. Can you say a little bit about what you're hearing about, how it's helping both of those parties?
Yeah, I think the people that I found are right matching, they some of them they are riding together, and one of the parties saving gas for saving money for gas, so they are saving that money. Other people, once the guy that was biking to work, when he was pulled over for a cop because he didn't have the red light, so right now he has a red light. And I heard that we are trying to put together a bamboo in one of the hotels, but yeah, we're working on.
Okay. And are you hearing anything? It sounds like you're hearing directly from the workers about ways in which the rideshare program is really helping them address their transportation barriers. What about from the participating employers? Are you hearing from them that they see a benefit for participating? I mean, it sounds like certainly the number of employers has grown, so there must be some sense of the value that they're communicating, perhaps to each other.
Yeah, I had heard that some employees get together and get to know each other, and they carpool together. So that can be like a better relation, like for like a teamwork, instead of just being like co-workers. When they ride share, they get to know each other.
Okay. Well, I have a question from the audience. It's from Kelly Buchanan, and let me see if I unmute her. Kelly, can you give us your question?
I emailed it because I thought you would relay it.
Oh, would you rather I?
Well, it's true. I
Okay.
was wondering how the hotels participate, and assuming they participate financially, how much? Like the other one was $1,500 an employer, it sounded like, the other program.
Yeah, no, that hotel doesn't have to pay anything. This is totally free. We are, even when Data is a non-profit organization, we apply for a grant, and that's how we can do this kind of program. So no, the hotel doesn't have to pay anything.
Okay, so they're not out anything. They're not. It's great for them.
Yeah, it's a win-to-win situation.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No problem.
I always like to hear voices other than our own. Do you know, Liz? Do you know, are there plans, thinking about the future ever to ask employers to contribute financially? Because if it is providing a benefit, maybe they'd be willing.
Yeah, well, we are trying to think about the shuttle, like the Baltimore, like Jim said. I think it's a great idea, and I think we're going to start to doing that, because if we can check all that routes that the shuttle can do, I'm sure maybe employers are willing to help their people. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
This is Carolyn.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's different, of course, in every community. I know, on the one hand, there's a similar to Tim's. There's a regional planning council in the Destin area of Florida, and their van pools, the riders only have to pay half the cost of a seat because any participating employer is already putting in money. So it's the setup that you make for every community. It's different, but I do find that we're all lucky in this day and age, and we're losing money fast from things we were relying on in the past. But it's great to be able to use grants for startup, but it's that's the time to tweak the program, collect all the data, because then you can slowly get buy-in over time. The Heart of Texas Workforce program that I mentioned to you, that the Six to Success shuttle, the first year they contributed, it wasn't a match. It was just a little bit of money, and then because they saw some success, then they committed to funding for 3 years, and then through the next set of conversations, one of the local employers is ready to start doing the commuter benefits program, which really means they're taking on some administration hassle, if you will, to make sure that employees can do a pre-tax benefit. So, I think we are fortunate with these federal grants, but I think laying the groundwork for a time when they're not there, nor should they be, perhaps, I don't know. So it's sort of a conversation journey and a step-by-step approach to getting the buy-in.
Well, it does seem from your presentation, Liz, that buy-in is growing in the program, and that additional hotels have joined, and so it must be working for all concerned. And thanks for sharing the information about it.
Thank you.
I had a follow-up question that's related to this about what employers pay, and it's directed to Tim. It's from Megan Lorino, and Megan, I'm going to try putting you on the spot as well. Megan, can you ask your question about the costs in Tim's program?
Yeah, hi Tim, this is Megan in Houston. I just might have missed it. I heard you say that you have worked out with the employers that they do a small cost, will they pay y'all a certain amount of money? I think the amount was $1,500. So I was just curious, is that just $1,500 a year total, or do they give you $1,500?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of the question.
We sort of lost you a little bit, Megan, but I think your question is how much the employers pay, whether they're all paying $1,500, whether they're paying amount per employee. How is that set and worked out with the participating employers, Tim? We're now having problems hearing you. I'm going to mute you, Megan, just in case it's interfering. I hope that got your question. Can you try that again, Tim?
Okay. As I was saying, it is a good question because it is paid per employee. It's like if they have 100 employees to 200 employees, and that's how we base the pricing off of it.
Okay, so it's a sliding scale based on the total size of their workforce?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Or is it the number who are participating specifically?
No, it's the size of their workforce. It can be as little as $500, or it can be as much as somebody like a big air carrier can pay as much as $3,000. The average has been about $1,500.
Okay. Well, you know what? I think we're going to open it up now for questions and discussion in general. Before we do, I wanted to give Carolyn a chance to flag a couple of upcoming opportunities to connect with Joblinks. Do you want to describe these, Carolyn?
Yes, yes. We are, because we're funded through the Employment and Training Administration for several of our activities, we have some new trainings coming online. One of them is a transportation solutions course. It's called Strategies for Employment-Related Mobility, and this is on March 20th in Richmond, Virginia, and we do have some travel scholarships available. This is for workforce development professionals who might be sort of decision makers, managers, or a designee who's going to be handling transportation issues or support services in an organization. Whether you're youth build, CSTEP, MIG grant, workforce board, one-stop center, we encourage you to come. And what we'll be doing is we'll be talking about ways to build in transportation, one-on-one trip planning into your organization, ways to discover what transportation is available in your community and how to build upon that. For those of you who have taken a more general transportation solutions course, this one will just be talking about employment-related mobility. If you have any if you want more information on it, our colleague, Amy Conrack at conrack@cta.org will let you know more about it. I hope you'll join us. Also, May 21st and 22nd in Baltimore, as part of our annual week-long CTA Expo, Joblinks will be delivering a 2-day conference. It's going to be called, it is called Delivering Workplace Connectivity, Mobility, and Beyond. I really encourage you to come. We'll have a lot of transportation providers in the audience, and we'd love to have as many workforce development professionals as possible. We won't be just talking about transit. We'll be talking about co-location, how to co-locate childcare in transit. We'll be talking about better land use policies to perhaps in future years eliminate transportation barriers altogether. We'll be talking about different ways to use technology like real-time information to help workers. We do encourage you to come, and if you have any more information, questions about that, you can get in touch with any of us on the Joblinks team or just sign up. Love to see you.
Great, and if we can help get information about that out, we'd be glad to do that too. I also want to mention an upcoming event. It came up actually earlier in conversation with a member of our audience. We have a webinar in 2 weeks that is focused on alternative staffing organizations and some research that has been done by folks at the UMass Boston about their impact for workers and for low-wage workers. It's an issue where there's the potential for some very interesting intersection as well between the sector approach and alternative staffing models. So sector initiatives are adopting, some are launching alternative staffing organizations within their work as a way of helping to create employment opportunities for their participants. Others may partner with alternative staffing organizations. So information about this, including a link to register, will be included in follow-up to this event. I hope you can join us for that session. Okay, I want to give a chance for a couple more questions that are out there, particularly, and I think this is fitting because it was Winnie Brinks who was I was talking with at the Source in Grand Rapids, and whose example I shared about the job seeker who had a job but no way to get there. But she's got a couple of questions. Winnie, would you like to ask your questions now? And thanks for your patience. I don't know if you're muted or not. We can't hear you. So.
Am I on now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for this opportunity. One of my questions is, what about solutions for scattered sites? We have different shift start times, different shift end times, different lengths of shifts. The 5 companies that I in particular work with are scattered throughout the metropolitan area of our medium-sized city, and some are served by buses, some are not. Our bus does not run 24 hours, so there are a lot of people that literally cannot take a job that they are well qualified for and offered because they don't have their own vehicle. So I'm really curious if there are, not carpooling, because that we've tried and it's been problematic, but if there are other solutions for the scattered sites and scattered shift times and lengths.
Carolyn, is that one that you think from your scan of folks around the country that you might have some pointers towards?
Yes, a couple things are coming to mind. When you go to our transportation strategies page, we have fixed route services in the trip to work and also demand response services in the trip to work. And, again, there's not one solution, but for the areas where there are fixed route buses, some communities will start their shift a half hour earlier, end it a half hour later, just to get the start of a new or tail end of a shift. Other things are, late night, especially if you do some trip planning and work with people, you find out that you could take the bus one way, but the bus closes, so then you're eligible for a nighttime shared ride taxi home. Or you can, there's a number of, late night solutions on that same page where It talks about Swan Island out in, I think it was Oregon, where again they made sure that they had like a demand response shuttle going home just in the evening. Outside of people coming home from the Newark, New Jersey airport, they can make it all the way on a good bus to Newark, but then they have a dial-a-ride demand response one that takes them home late at night and sort of can drop them off at their house. So it's kind of like a combination of things like that. If you have about 5 people on a vehicle, you could do van pooling. And that might be, sometimes people incentivize those that whoever's the driver can then use the vehicle on the weekends. It just depends on what your policies are. That could get to more scattered locations.
This is Pamela at Joblinks 2. One of the sector briefs, unfortunately, I can't remember which of the ones that are up there, but one of the 3 that we posted, there's an example of a van pool where the riders can sort of split shifts. They can come in on one and go out on another. They don't necessarily have to stay with the same riders going both ways. So that's one example. And we also talked about, I think with medical facilities, where the medical facility, the hospital, has a shuttle that travels between different sites. And one of them also pays for the use of zip cars, so employees can use the zip cars to get back and forth to different facilities during working hours, and they don't have to incur the expense of that. In each of the briefs that we've done, there are some examples of what's going on out there, so hopefully that can give you a jumping off point.
This is Tim Harrison with the BWI Partnership, and I just want to piggyback on the van pooling piece, that under the Job Access Reverse Commute grant, van pooling to help pay for van pools for low-income workers is allowed. So I'll give you an idea on that. And BTSI is one of the players that definitely understands how to utilize the Job Access Reverse Commute, the JART grant, to help with van pools.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate those resources.
And Winnie, thank you for the question. I think we are basically at our point where we have to wrap now. But I can't resist asking one other question about one of my favorite topics, which is lasting systems change. And it just occurs to me, I've heard a little bit from a professor at the University of Missouri at St. Louis, Todd Swanstrom, about the geographic mismatch between retail establishments which had moved out into the suburbs and many of the workers who want retail jobs who are still in central St. Louis. It occurs to me, too, that some of the problems that are experienced with the bus system out to BWI not matching the schedule of the jobs is, well, it just makes me wonder whether there is some kind of change to those systems that could happen. In St. Louis, a congressman heard from the businesses in his district out in the suburbs that they couldn't get employees out there, and they restored funding that was being cut by the state to extend transportation out there. I'm wondering if you're aware of any examples like that, or if you've considered those kinds of examples in your areas.
I can honestly say that the BWI partnership, that was originally the first idea, was to ask Maryland Transit Administration to increase the service to the area, and it was on the table, but with the cuts that came down from the governor's office on transit, it quickly left the table, which opened the door for us to start our own shuttle service so that the employees could get back and forth.
Fair enough. Carolyn or Liz, anything you'd like to add on that point?
Well, just that, in this day and age where a lot of transit agencies rely on local property taxes, and our transit providers are struggling, and I think it's going to take a strong partnership of advocacy. don't have your TREDS agency have to go to their congressperson alone or to their governor alone. Join them, let them know that transportation is more than a support service. It's needed for infrastructure and economic development in our future.
Okay, well, Liz, is there anything you'd like to add, or?
No, I think they cover like the main points.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much. I want to say, as we wrap this webinar, as you close the webinar, you'll be prompted to give a brief evaluation, and we really rely on these to plan future webinars and to get a sense of how your experience of the webinar was. So it's there. You see, it's super brief. I hope you'll take less than a minute to just respond and give us your thoughts. Next slide, please. And thank you, Carolyn, Tim, and Liz, for sharing your really fabulous work. It's just such a great opportunity to learn more about how the transportation world and the workforce development world can complement each other and work in partnership. And I just can't thank you enough for being on this panel.
Anytime.
You were quite welcome. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Feel free to get in touch with me. I will be sending a message to everyone who registered for this webinar with links to the recording, the slideshows, and some of those relevant materials like the sector briefs and the websites. So, but if you have questions or comments or follow-up that you'd like to do, I encourage you to contact me directly. I'm always eager to hear what people are thinking of in the field, and that's what keeps us going. So thanks very much to everyone. Our webinar is now over. Hope you have a good rest of your day and a long weekend ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, are you on that call?